Commander Jace Rowan rubbed his bloodshot eyes, the holographic displays of his salvaged ship Redemption casting a ghostly blue glow across his weathered face. 48 hours without sleep, chasing down a derelict mining barge in the Cygnus sector. Standard procedure. Good pay. Another day keeping the void at bay. That's when the distress signal cut through his comms, weak, desperate, and in no language his translator immediately recognized. Nar Septerike. Emergency. Temperature critical. Shields failing. The message repeated, growing fainter each time. Jace's AI finally matched the linguistic patterns. Volari transmission, announced Arya, his ship's computer. Origin, science vessel Stellar Harmony. Current position, inner corona of the Zethus red giant. Jace whistled low. The Volari were an advanced species, crystalline-skinned beings who had mastered interstellar travel centuries before humans. Their scientists were legendary. But even they wouldn't normally risk approaching a star that close. What the hell were they doing there? Jace muttered, pulling up the stellar charts. Based on fragmented data packets, they were conducting research on pre-nova stellar conditions, Arya replied. A radiation surge has damaged their engines and life support systems. One life sign detected. The display showed the stricken vessel's trajectory, spiraling ever closer to the churning furnace of the red giant. Surface temperatures approaching 3,700 Kelvin. Radiation levels that would liquefy human flesh in minutes. Jace plotted an intercept course almost without thinking, his fingers dancing across the navigation panel. Commander, Arya interrupted, survival probability for this mission calculates at 7.3%. The Volari vessel will experience catastrophic shield failure in approximately 2 hours. Even with our enhanced shielding, Redemption cannot withstand such proximity for more than 20 minutes. So I'll work fast. Jace engaged the engines, feeling the familiar surge as the ship accelerated to maximum speed. His comms panel flashed. Incoming transmission from Galactic Rescue Authority headquarters. Admiral Corvin's stern face filled the screen. Rowan, sensors show you're altering course toward the Zethus star. Tell me you're not responding to that Volari distress call. Someone's still alive in there, Admiral. And they'll be dead soon enough, along with you if you attempt this. Corvin's expression softened slightly. Look, I know you're the best rescue pilot we've got, but this isn't like the Neptune station incident. This is certain death. Jace's jaw tightened at the mention of Neptune. 67 saved that day. 3 lost. He still saw their faces in his dreams. With all due respect, sir, I'm not in GRA jurisdiction. Redemption is my ship. Damn it, Jace. The Volari themselves have called off their rescue attempts. Their own ships can't handle those conditions. What makes you think you can? Jace stared at the rapidly approaching inferno on his view screen. Human stubbornness, sir. The Admiral's face hardened. I'm logging this as a rogue operation. If by some miracle you survive, there will be consequences. Noted, Jace replied, terminating the connection. For the next hour, he prepared methodically. He modified the ship's deflector shields, rerouting emergency power to strengthen them beyond safety parameters. He checked his EVA suit, the latest model with triple-layer heat resistance and an experimental cooling system. Arya, send a message to the Volari vessel. Tell them help is coming. As Redemption approached the outer corona of the star, the sensors began screaming warnings. The viewports automatically darkened as the red giant filled the entire field of vision, a hell of roiling plasma and massive solar flares. The ship shuddered violently as it pushed through the outer layers of stellar material. Temperature warnings flashed across every console. Volari vessel located, Arya announced. Structural integrity at 19%. Internal temperature, 2,100 Kelvin and rising. Open a direct channel. Jace sealed his helmet, checking the suit's integrity one final time. Channel open. This is Commander Jace Rowan of the salvage vessel Redemption. I'm initiating emergency docking procedures. If you can hear this, move away from the outer hull. For a moment, only static answered him. Then a faint voice responded, the words barely audible through the interference. This, Cyrexia, chief astrophysicist, cannot move. Please, save yourself. That's not happening, Jace replied, guiding his ship into position beside the disintegrating Volari craft. Hold on tight. Things are about to get interesting. As the docking clamps engaged with a shuddering impact, Jace stepped into the airlock. The mission clock started ticking in his helmet display. 20 minutes until shield failure. 20 minutes to find Cyrexia and get out. 20 minutes to do the impossible. The airlock cycled open with a hiss, and Commander Jace Rowan stepped onto the deck of the dying Valari vessel. Instantly, his suit's external temperature sensors spiked into the red zone. "Arya, give me a structural integrity map," Jace commanded, his voice steady despite the hellish conditions surrounding him. His HUD flickered to life, displaying a three-dimensional schematic of the stellar harmony. The alien ship's layout was unlike human vessels, all curved corridors and elegant chambers arranged in crystalline symmetry. Most sections glowed an angry red on his display, indicating imminent structural collapse. "Life sign detected in the central research chamber," Arya reported. "Approximately 70 meters from your position. Caution, multiple hull breaches detected along primary route." Jace moved forward, each step deliberate on the warping deck plating. The walls around him, once gleaming with the pearlescent beauty typical of Valari architecture, were now blistering and melting, running in rivulets of liquid crystal that hissed and steamed. 16 minutes until shield failure, Arya reminded him. The first corridor ended in a tangle of collapsed support beams. Jace squeezed through a narrow gap, feeling the searing heat even through his suit. The cooling system whirred frantically, struggling to maintain a survivable internal temperature. As he navigated deeper into the ship, evidence of the crew's fate became apparent. Near what appeared to be living quarters, crystalline forms lay shattered and half-melted, the remains of Valari who hadn't escaped the initial heat surge. Jace respectfully averted his eyes. There would be time for proper rituals later, if he survived. "Warning. Suit exterior approaching maximum heat tolerance," Arya announced. Her temperature rising. Jace felt sweat streaming down his face inside his helmet. "Divert auxiliary power to cooling systems." Diverting. 13 minutes remaining. The central research chamber's entrance was sealed, the door's locking mechanism fused from the heat. Jace attached a small device to the control panel, overriding the circuits. The door shuttered open halfway, then stuck. Jace wedged himself through the gap and stopped short at the sight before him. In the center of the chamber, surrounded by melting equipment and flickering holographic displays, a Valari female lay slumped across what appeared to be a control console. Her crystalline skin, which should have shimmered with internal light, was clouded and dull. Fracture lines ran across her delicate features, her normally elegant form curled in agony. "Syrexia?" Jace approached carefully. Her eyes opened, multifaceted gems that focused slowly on him. A weak glow pulsed beneath her translucent skin, evidence of life still fighting against the heat that was literally breaking her apart. "Human." Her voice was like glass chimes in a distant breeze. "Why'd come?" "No one survives this close." "I'm Commander Jace Rowan," he said, kneeling beside her. "And I'm getting you out of here." "Too late. For me." Her crystalline fingers twitched, sending refractive patterns dancing across the walls. "Data. Must survive. Research. Pre-nova conditions." Jace spotted a small data crystal clutched in her other hand. He gently took it and secured it in a protected pocket of his suit. "Your research is safe. Now let's get you safe too." He carefully lifted Syrexia into his arms. She weighed less than he expected. Valari were naturally light due to their crystalline composition, but she seemed diminished, parts of her structure already lost to the heat. "How? Withstand temperature?" she whispered, her gem-like eyes studying his suit with scientific curiosity even as she suffered. "Human stubbornness," Jace replied with a grim smile behind his visor. "Hold on tight." As he turned toward the exit, a deafening crack echoed through the chamber. The ceiling buckled, superheated metal and crystal raining down. Jace lunged forward, shielding Syrexia with his body as debris crashed around them. When the dust settled, the way they had come was completely blocked. "Arya." "New route," Jace demanded, his heart pounding. "Calculating. Only viable alternate route is through the engine compartment. Warning, temperatures in that section exceed 3,000 Kelvin. "My suit can't handle that," Jace muttered. "No. Choice," Syrexia whispered, her voice weaker. "Engine room. Has emergency escape pods. 10 minutes until shield failure," Arya reminded him. Jace adjusted his grip on Syrexia, cradling her damaged form as carefully as possible. "Which way to the engine room?" She pointed weakly toward a small maintenance hatch on the far wall. "Through there. Follow. Power conduits." The hatch barely accommodated Jace's shoulders. He crawled through one-handed, pulling Syrexia behind him, feeling the metal searing his suit where it contacted the passage walls. "Warning, suit integrity compromised," Arya announced. "External temperature exceeding safety parameters." Jace felt the first real burn against his lower back. A suit seemed giving way to the relentless heat. He gritted his teeth and kept moving. They emerged into a narrow corridor bathed in red emergency lighting. At the end, a massive bulkhead door stood partially open, beyond which lay the engine compartment, and their only chance of escape. 8 minutes, Arya said. Jace looked down at Syrexia. Her crystalline form was now visibly deteriorating, the elegant patterns of her face beginning to blur as molecular bonds weakened under the extreme heat. Stay with me, he urged. We're almost there. Her multifaceted eyes locked with his. No one would have come. Why did you? Before he could answer, the ship lurched violently, throwing them against the bulkhead. The star was pulling them deeper. 7 minutes until shield failure. Arya's voice remained calm. Commander, you need to move now. Jace tightened his grip on Syrexia and stepped toward the furnace that awaited them. The engine compartment was an inferno. Liquid fire dripped from the ceiling as the ship's power core began to destabilize, spewing radiation and heat in deadly waves. Jace's visor automatically darkened to protect his eyes from the blinding light of exposed plasma conduits. 6 minutes until shield failure. Arya's voice seemed distant now, fighting through increasing interference. The moment Jace stepped fully into the engine room, he knew his suit wouldn't last. The external temperature reading flashed once before the sensor itself melted. The cooling system whined to a higher pitch, then faltered, struggling to compensate. Where's the escape pod? He gasped, each breath scorching his lungs despite the suit's filtration. Syrexia weakly pointed across the vast chamber, past the towering central column of the Valari quantum drive. There, maintenance bay. Jace spotted it, a small hatch in the far wall marked with what he assumed were Valari emergency symbols. At least 100 meters through the worst of the heat. Going to be close, he muttered, adjusting his grip on Syrexia. Her crystalline body was hot against his suit, fracture lines spreading visibly across her form. He started forward, staying close to the outer wall where overhead conduits provided minimal shelter from the worst of the radiation. Each step was agony as the deck plates conducted heat directly through his boots. Warning lights flashed across his HUD as more suit systems began to fail. Warning. Critical exposure imminent, Arya announced. Radiation levels exceeding filtration capacity. Halfway across the chamber, a plasma conduit above them ruptured with a shriek of escaping energy. Jace threw himself sideways, twisting to keep Syrexia sheltered with his body. Liquid fire splashed across his back, instantly burning through the outer layer of his suit. Jace spit back a scream, the pain almost blinding him. The suit's medical system automatically injected painkillers, but they barely took the edge off. Damage to your thermal protection, Syrexia whispered, her gem-like eyes widening at the sight of his melting suit. You cannot survive. Watch me, Jace grunted, forcing himself back to his feet. He staggered forward, each step leaving molten footprints as his boots began to degrade. 5 minutes until shield failure, Arya reported. Commander, your vital signs are approaching dangerous levels. Core temperature rising. Jace didn't need the warning. He could feel the heat infiltrating his body, cooking him from the inside. Sweat poured down his face only to evaporate instantly. His vision wavered, the engine room swimming in and out of focus. Another 20 meters to go. The maintenance bay doors seemed to recede with each painful step. Suddenly, Syrexia stirred in his arms. Put me down. Not happening, Jace gasped. Killing yourself wouldn't be the first time. He managed a pained smile she couldn't see behind his visor. Besides, I'm not leaving without you. That's not how this works. Her crystalline hand reached up, touching the side of his helmet. To his surprise, a cooling sensation spread from the contact point. The Valari was using her own remaining energy to absorb some of the heat affecting him. Save. Strength, Jace protested. Symbiosis, she replied, her melodic voice stronger for a moment. My people value balance. Cannot accept, without giving. The momentary relief gave Jace a second wind. He pushed forward with renewed determination, even as more suit alarms blared in his ears. The radiation meter was now permanently in the red, the dosage he was receiving far beyond safe human limits. For minutes, Arya announced, her synthetic voice beginning to distort. Suit breach detected in multiple locations. Jace could feel it, the direct touch of the stellar inferno against patches of exposed skin. His back, his legs, his left arm, all burning. But still he moved forward, one excruciating step after another. 3/4 of the way across the chamber, a support beam crashed down directly in their path, bringing with it a cascade of superheated debris. Jace lunged forward, diving through a narrow gap in the falling metal. He landed hard, rolling to protect Syrexia, feeling something crack in his ribs. "Your body temperature?" Syrexia gasped, her voice filled with disbelief. "How still conscious?" "Told you," Jace wheezed, struggling back to his feet. Human stubbornness. But stubbornness had its limits. As he staggered the final 20 meters toward the maintenance bay, his body began to betray him. His muscles trembled uncontrollably. The edges of his vision darkened. The suit's medical sensors were going haywire, registering multiple system failures throughout his body. 3 minutes, Arya's voice was now badly distorted, the communication system degrading. "Commander, vital signs. Critical levels." The maintenance bay door loomed before them, sealed against the catastrophic conditions in the engine room. Jace fumbled with the controls, his gloved fingers clumsy and partially melted. "How does it open?" he gasped. Syrexia reached out with a trembling hand, pressing her crystalline palm against a sensor panel. For a horrifying moment, nothing happened. Then the door slid open with a hiss of escaping pressure. The maintenance bay beyond was marginally cooler, perhaps only 1,000 degrees instead of 3,000. Jace stumbled inside, his legs giving way beneath him. He managed to twist as he fell, ensuring Syrexia landed on top of him rather than the scorching deck. "Escape pod." "There," she whispered, pointing to a small craft docked at the far end of the bay. Jace tried to rise, but his muscles refused to cooperate. The suit was now more hindrance than protection, sections of it fused to his burned skin. Warning icons filled his HUD completely before the display flickered and died. "Can't feel my legs," he admitted, his voice a raw rasp. 2 minutes until shield failure. Arya's voice was barely audible through the damaged comms. Jace looked at the escape pod, so close yet impossibly far in his condition, then down at Syrexia, cradled against his chest. Her crystalline form had stabilized somewhat in the relatively cooler environment, the fracture lines no longer spreading as rapidly. He began to crawl, pulling himself across the deck one agonizing inch at a time, still clutching Syrexia to his chest. "No one would have come," she repeated, her multifaceted eyes studying him with wonder. "Why? Risk everything. For stranger?" Through cracked lips, Jace managed to whisper, "Because no one should die alone. Among the stars." The escape pod was still 10 meters away when the ship lurched violently again. The red giant was pulling them deeper, the outer hull beginning to disintegrate completely. 1 minute. Arya's final warning came through as little more than static. With the last of his strength, Jace looked down at Syrexia. "Need you to finish this. Can you make it to pod?" Her crystalline features shifted in what might have been a Valari expression of determination. "Together, we will." The ship's dying systems wailed around them as Jace forced his ravaged body back to its feet. Every movement was agony, his nerves screaming as burned skin pulled against the melted remnants of his suit. The environmental controls in the maintenance bay were failing, the temperature rising with each passing second. 45 seconds. Arya's voice was barely audible through his damaged helmet. Syrexia's crystalline form trembled in his arms, her once brilliant surface now clouded with stress fractures. Yet Jace felt her gathering what little strength remained, her body cooling slightly as she directed her remaining energy towards stabilizing herself. "Save yourself," she whispered. "Leave me. Take research data." Jace's laugh came out as a pained wheeze. "Not how I work." With shaking steps, he staggered toward the escape pod. The ship lurched again, throwing him against a bulkhead. Something snapped in his left shoulder, sending fresh waves of agony through his body. Jace bit through his lip to keep from screaming, the taste of blood filling his mouth. 30 seconds. The escape pod's hatch was sealed with another Valari biometric lock. Jace collapsed before it, his legs finally giving out completely. "Need you to open it," he gasped. Syrexia reached out with a trembling crystalline hand, pressing it against the sensor panel. The hatch slid open, revealing the small craft beyond, barely large enough for 2 occupants, but equipped with its own shielding and life support. Jace tried to lift Syrexia into the pod, but his left arm wouldn't respond. Using only his right, he managed to push her partly through the hatch, then dragged himself after her, leaving a smear of blood and melted suit material on the deck. 20 seconds until shield failure, Arya warned. "Commander, Evacuate immediately. Inside the pod, Jace collapsed against the control console. The interior was designed for Volari physiology, the seats and interfaces alien to human anatomy. With fumbling fingers, he tried to activate the launch sequence, but the symbols swam before his eyes, meaningless in his deteriorating state. Can't read, he mumbled. Syrexia pulled herself upright, her movements still slow but more coordinated than before. She pressed her hands to the controls, the crystalline interfaces responding to her touch. Initiating. Emergency launch, she said, her melodic voice stronger. Shields. Activating. The pod systems hummed to life around them. A cool mist sprayed from vents in the ceiling, some kind of Volari emergency treatment. Where it touched Jace's exposed skin, the burning pain dulled slightly. 10 seconds. The maintenance bay doors were beginning to warp, superheated metal glowing white-hot as the ship's final protections failed. Jace knew they wouldn't survive the launch if those doors didn't open. Bay doors, he croaked, pointing weakly. Syrexia's faceted eyes widened. She worked the controls frantically, but nothing happened. Manual override. Failed, she reported. Doors, mechanism melted. 5 seconds. Jace dragged himself to the pod's small viewport, staring at the sealed bay doors that trapped them. They were so close. To die now, when escape was literally within their grasp. No, he growled, a final surge of adrenaline flooding his system. Not like this. He reached for the pod's weapon controls. Every escape craft had some form of defense. His fingers found what felt like a targeting system. With the last of his strength, he locked onto the bay doors and fired. The pod's small defensive laser sliced through the weakened metal of the doors, cutting a jagged hole large enough for their craft to pass through. Beyond, the hellish glow of the red giant filled the viewport. Launch, now. Jace gasped. Syrexia slammed her palm onto the control panel. The pod lurched forward, thrusters screaming as they shot through the makeshift opening, leaving the dying Volari vessel behind. Shield failure imminent. Arya's final transmission came through as they cleared the ship. Moments later, the stellar harmony broke apart, consumed by the stellar inferno. The escape pod's shields flared brilliant blue as they fought against the star's murderous radiation. Jace felt consciousness slipping away, his body finally surrendering to the catastrophic damage it had sustained. As darkness closed in around him, he felt a cool touch against his face. Syrexia had removed what remained of his helmet, her crystalline fingers gently touching his burned skin. Rest now, she said, her voice clearer than it had been since he found her. My turn, to protect. Jace's vision blurred, but he could see that her form was stabilizing in the pod's controlled environment. The Volari regenerative systems were working, the fractures in her crystalline structure slowly mending. Data, he whispered. Your research is safe. She touched the pocket where he had stored her data crystal. As am I. Because of you. Jace tried to speak again, but his body had nothing left to give. He felt himself drifting away, consciousness fading. Then something extraordinary happened. Where Syrexia's fingers touched his temple, a cool sensation spread through his mind. Volari were touch telepaths, a fact he had learned during xenobiology training but had forgotten until this moment. Their minds connected, bridging the vast evolutionary gap between crystal and carbon life forms. In that intimate mental contact, Jace felt Syrexia's consciousness entwine with his own, her brilliant scientific mind, her deep curiosity about the universe, her profound gratitude, and something else. A growing emotional attachment that transcended mere appreciation. In turn, she experienced his memories, his years of rescue missions, the people he had saved, those he had lost. She felt his driving need to protect others, even at the cost of his own safety. She understood why he had come for her when no one else would. Beautiful, she whispered, both aloud and within their shared mental space. Your mind, your heart, your courage. Through their connection, she directed the pod's medical systems to focus on his most critical injuries. The Volari healing mist intensified, targeting the radiation damage and third-degree burns that covered much of his body. Stay with me, Syrexia urged, her telepathic voice stronger than her physical one. We are not finished yet. Their minds remained linked as the escape pod fought its way free of the red giant's gravity well, shields straining against forces that would tear apart most vessels. In that shared consciousness, there was no longer human and Volari, only two beings united by survival and something deeper beginning to form. Trajectory. Stable, Syrexia reported, monitoring the pod systems through her direct interface. We will survive. As the red giant receded behind them, the pod's communication system picked up a signal. The Redemption, still orbiting at a safe distance despite the danger. Arya, Jace managed to whisper. Tell her, we made it. The last thing he felt before consciousness finally slipped away was Syrexia's mind still intertwined with his. Her presence a cool, crystalline certainty in the chaos of pain and damage. I will not let you go, she promised, the words echoing in their shared consciousness. Not after what you endured for me. Consciousness returned to Jace in fragments, flashes of light, distant voices, the cool touch of crystalline fingers against his face. He drifted between awareness and darkness, his body fighting to heal from injuries that should have been fatal. When he finally opened his eyes fully, he found himself in an unfamiliar chamber. The walls pulsed with soft, prismatic light, and the air carried a faint mineral scent. Not a human medical facility, then. This was Valari architecture. He awakens, a melodic voice announced. Jace turned his head, wincing at the stiffness in his neck. Syrexia stood beside his bed, her crystalline form now fully restored to its natural elegance. She gleamed with internal light, the facets of her face shifting subtly in what he recognized as a Valari smile. Welcome back, Commander Rowan, she said, her voice now strong and clear, musical in its alien cadence. Where? His own voice was still raw, his throat damaged from superheated air. You are aboard the Valari medical cruiser Crystal Mercy, she explained. They detected our escape pod's beacon and recovered us. You have been unconscious for 16 days. Jace tried to sit up, only to discover his body was encased in a translucent crystalline matrix from chest to feet. He raised his hands, examining them with shock. The skin was pink and new, showing no signs of the catastrophic burns he had suffered. Your injuries were severe, Syrexia said, noting his surprise. Our medical technology is compatible with your physiology, but the healing process required time. How bad was it? Jace asked, memories of pain and fire flickering through his mind. Her faceted eyes dimmed slightly. 87% of your dermal layer was compromised. Radiation poisoning at level 4. Multiple organ systems in failure. Our chief medical officer had never seen a living being survive such trauma. Jace let out a low whistle. So I was just mostly dead. Your humor remains intact, Syrexia observed, her crystalline features shifting in what might have been amusement. That is encouraging. She moved closer, the lights in the chamber reacting to her presence, brightening and shifting spectrum. With graceful movements, she adjusted the crystalline matrix around his body, her fingers leaving cool trails where they brushed his skin. The medical encasement will dissolve completely within 2 days, she explained. You will retain some sensitivity to heat for several months, but our physicians expect a full recovery. And you? Jace asked, studying her restored form. You were breaking apart when I found you. I have healed, she replied simply. Then, with a more somber tone, thanks to you. A comfortable silence fell between them. Jace found himself remembering the telepathic connection they had shared in the escape pod, the intimate merging of minds that had transcended their physiological differences. He wondered if she remembered it as vividly as he did. You are thinking of our mental bond, Syrexia said, answering his unspoken question. It remains, though fainter at a distance. A side effect of extended telepathic contact during trauma. Jace felt a slight warmth in his mind, like sunlight through crystal, her presence, reaching out to him. He smiled, somehow knowing she could sense his response. The Valari Conclave wishes to speak with you when you are stronger, Syrexia continued. Your actions have created quite a stir among my people. Is that good or bad? Unprecedented, she clarified. No non-Valari has ever risked their life for one of us in such a manner. It challenges certain assumptions about other species, particularly humans. Before Jace could respond, the chamber door opened. 3 Valari entered, taller than Syrexia, their crystalline forms more elaborate and adorned with what appeared to be ceremonial markings. They moved with fluid grace, the light in the room refracting through their bodies in complex patterns. The triad of elders, Syrexia whispered, stepping back respectfully. The central figure approached Jace's bed, towering over him. Its crystalline form was tinged with blue, ancient fracture lines visible beneath a polished surface, battle scars, or perhaps simply the marks of great age. Commander Jace Rowan. The elder spoke, its voice deep and resonant like wind through crystal caves. You have done what none thought possible. You have returned our daughter from the fire. Jace glanced at Cyrexia, who inclined her head slightly. I just did my job, he replied. No, the elder countered. Your job would have been to heed the warnings of your superiors, to calculate risk against reward and determine the mission untenable. Instead, you chose something else, something we find fascinating. Another elder stepped forward, this one with a greenish tinge to its crystalline structure. We have reviewed the data from your vessel's logs, and from scientist Cyrexia's research. Your actions defy logical analysis. With respect, Jace said, not everything humans do is based on logic. Precisely, the third elder interjected, its form shimmering with amber light. This is why we have come. The Volari have long maintained distance from humanity, believing your emotional nature made you unpredictable, dangerous, perhaps. But now, the first elder continued, we must reconsider. What you demonstrated was not merely emotional recklessness, but something our philosophers have long debated, whether true altruism can exist across species boundaries. Jace shifted uncomfortably under their intense gaze. I just couldn't leave her to die. A simple statement, the green-tinged elder noted, yet profound in its implications. Our council has voted unanimously to establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth's governments, beginning with a cultural and scientific exchange program. And, the Amber Elder added, to offer you a permanent position as liaison between our peoples, should you accept. Jace looked at Cyrexia, whose faceted eyes glowed with quiet hope. Through their faint mental connection, he felt her desire for him to stay, not just for diplomatic reasons, but for more personal ones. I'll need time to consider, Jace replied carefully. The elders inclined their crystalline heads in unison. Of course. Rest and heal, Commander. Cyrexia will attend to your needs. After they departed, Cyrexia moved closer to Jace's bed again. They were impressed, she said. Few outsiders have ever received such an offer. And what about you? Jace asked. What do you want? Her crystalline features softened, internal light shifting to warmer hues. I want to understand, she said simply, what I felt when our minds touched. It was unlike anything in Volari experience. The intensity of your emotions, your willingness to sacrifice. These are concepts my people have studied abstractly, but rarely witnessed. She hesitated, then placed her crystalline hand over his. Where they touched, the mental connection strengthened, allowing Jace to feel the complexity of her emotions. Curiosity mingled with gratitude, scientific interest interwoven with something deeper and more personal. And, she continued softly, I wish to explore what grows between us. If you are willing. Jace turned his hand to intertwine his fingers with hers, flesh and crystal, so different, yet somehow fitting together. I didn't come all that way just to leave now, he said with a smile. 3 months later, the Volari flagship Crystalline Thought entered Earth orbit, marking the first official diplomatic mission in the history of human-Volari relations. Standing on the observation deck, Jace watched his homeworld grow larger in the viewport, Cyrexia beside him. He was still officially a commander in the Galactic Rescue Authority. Admiral Corvin had withdrawn all threats of disciplinary action after the Volari presented him with an ornate crystal commemorating Jace's impossible rescue mission. But now he had a new title as well, Ambassador. Nervous? Cyrexia asked, sensing his tension through their now permanent telepathic bond. A little, Jace admitted. I'm a rescue pilot, not a diplomat. Yet you bridged the gap between our peoples, she pointed out, her crystalline hand finding his. Something no diplomat ever managed. He smiled, feeling the familiar coolness of her touch against his skin. The medical treatments had healed most of his injuries, though faint scars still mapped the worst of the burns across his body. Cyrexia often traced them with her fingers when they were alone, calling them his courage marks. Their relationship had developed in ways neither could have anticipated. The mental bond forged in crisis had deepened, allowing them to share thoughts and emotions despite their vastly different physiologies. The Volari scientists studied the phenomenon with fascination, while human xenobiologists requested endless interviews about interspecies compatibility. The Volari High Council is monitoring this mission closely, Cyrexia said, her tone growing more serious. What happens on Earth will determine much about our future relations. No pressure, Jace chuckled. Her crystalline features shifted in the expression he now recognized as her version of a smile. Pressure creates diamonds, does it not? And you, Jace Rowan, have already proven what you can withstand. As Earth grew larger in the viewport, Jace reflected on the unlikely path that had brought him here. A desperate rescue mission, a brush with death, and now a role he never could have imagined, bridging two vastly different species. You know, he said thoughtfully, when I pulled you out of that ship, I never expected any of this. What did you expect? Cyrexia asked, genuine curiosity in her melodic voice. Jace shrugged. To save a life. That's all. Instead, you changed worlds, she replied, her mental presence warm against his consciousness, and found something neither of us knew was possible. As the ship began its descent toward Earth, Jace felt the weight of new responsibility settling on his shoulders, but also the lightness that came with purpose. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The human who had done the impossible, and the Volari who had given him a reason to try. Behind them, the red giant star that had nearly claimed their lives was now just a distant point of light among billions, no longer a place of danger, but the crucible where their legend had begun.